Good afternoon. Good
Hey,
afternoon. So, okay. Welcome to RPC call 13. Today's date being 29 September 2025. So I don't have we'll have two things on the agenda, but if you want to if you have anything, any other thing apart from what's on the agenda to talk about, feel free to also indicate. But and that will be actually feedback on the error codes. From my end, I don't have any feedback because I feel like it's good to go, but we still need to share it with other core devs to take a look at it. But I don't know if someone has any other thing in respect to the error codes that was posted last week rather.
Yeah. Hey everyone. Yeah, just to reiterate, I think the doc or the README file I wrote should be pretty self-explanatory and should give you an idea to review. I'd really appreciate if you guys take a look at it. And Mercy, if you have any contacts with different clients and if you can help them forward it and get some feedback, I'd really appreciate that. And so we can talk about what's the next steps and how we can get this merged.
Yes, so the reason why I pointed it out was I was hoping to open it up here. Then if anyone has an opinion on what needs to be changed or what could be improved, and then we'll talk about it here, then we'll make the changes, then we'll bring it out. We'll present it to the core developers to take a look at it. I don't know if this makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. Sounds good. Yeah, I'll give it a couple of days for anyone to comment. And I can post this in the core developers channel if that would make sense after a couple of days.
yeah, I think that would make sense. Just from like an outside, like operational perspective, it seems like it might be good to do the presentation for everyone at the core dev call, but it also seems like it would be probably useful because I think the core dev like time that you have to discuss is so small and narrow to
Right.
just be able to meet with different client teams. So if maybe Carrie or Mercy could make an introduction to someone that's working on Aragon or Nethermind or any of the or Besu even, if we could just take some time to talk with them to just see like, hey, this is a track. That might be like useful in the interim before the all hands. So that way like people have a lot more time to like look at it, get feedback, etc. Because I feel like otherwise we're going to be in like little 5 to 10 minute chunks that people like see it for like 5 minutes on that 1 hour, but then not again for a while. And it's the kind of thing where like I think a lot of people might have just like a lot of weird private stuff going on. Yeah, not weird private stuff, but I mean like uh error codes and responses that are unexpected. Um, yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually what I was thinking, but I wanted to like for us to discuss it in-house in case of we have any changes so that we kind of like start changing it at hands. Then we'll take it to the JSON RPC Discord. We'll tag some core developers there. Then if it is looking promising, like if there's improvement or they give us a thumbs up on it, then taking it over to each client teams and then maybe officially bringing it up again to the ACD, the execution layer call, ACDE. But I know that they won't give us much time, but at least once we have like a reasonable feedback from each from each client teams that is involved, we kind of like bring it more to a more official ground. And then even if it's 5 minutes, they're going to take a look at it. They will know that okay, this is happening. I don't know if that makes sense. But I just wanted us to like talk about it. What do we think? Do we have any changes we want to incorporate? Do we have any idea, improvements, or something we need to improve on? So that it should be, let's do the hard work so that it will be easier for the core developers to just, it won't take a total change that will like take on a whole lot of time. Let's just do the heavy lifting so that when they look at it, they'll be like, oh, this is good, then give us a thumbs up, then we can go ahead. Does this make sense?
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely. Yeah, we can. Sorry, go ahead, Gary.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I think that makes sense. I can take a look. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I can do that today or tomorrow, and then we
Awesome.
can start
Thank you.
circulating.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
So, about the RPC compacts, I don't know, I was trying to look into it, but I'm not sure how to properly contribute based on that. Is there like something we need to know for people that want to contribute? Because I think Sina did ask a question about it on the Discord also. Here, I think you're the best person to.
For RPC Compat, I got a PR merged last week, or actually this morning, but I put in a PR to look for a spec only flag. It was already existing in execution APIs. And now the RPC Compat simulator respects that. So it's only, so like for estimate gas, we don't expect clients to have the same, like return the same values for the estimation of the gas. And so we only look at the keys. And so there's a couple of tests passing in Hive, and then we probably need to add a few spec only flags on the execution API side. Do you have specific questions? Does that answer your question, or do you have other specific questions around the RPC compat?
Yeah, so I did look at the simulate and then, but I wanted to know if is there a way to improve the felling, at least to get a reasonable number of passes in the test?
Yeah, I'm still looking at that. There, standardizing the error codes will help a lot. There's a lot of error code failures, and then like some of the stuff is just things that clients haven't gotten to. Like the block timestamp was just added not too long ago for each like Git logs, and Gaff has it, but no one else does, sort of thing. And then the simulate V1 is the other kind of big one that everyone is failing, except Gaff. And I think that's I think it's sort of a lack of consensus across clients. But yeah, I think those are kind of the big ones that we need to
Okay.
address.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Luca. I don't know. I think we have a client team here. So I will drop the link to the error codes file. If you can get anybody from Nethermind to take a look at it and maybe give us a feedback on this. This is what we've been working on. Good afternoon, Luca. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. I will take a look.
Are you familiar with the error codes like ARC that we've been jamming on?
With error codes, what? Sorry, didn't get that.
So we've been working on grouping the error codes. So there's a way within the spec to be able to specify like what is a valid error code range. And so what we're trying to do is reserve ranges of error codes for the spec or execution APIs to be able to officially use. So as a client, if you had some error code that was like beyond like that, you could safely use like this range for returning back custom error code.
Okay.
So we're trying to standardize the errors. Maybe Sims, if you wanted to step through it really quickly, that could be
Yeah,
useful.
no, he pretty much summarized it. So the goal is for the cross clients to return a dependable error code that the clients or DApps or anyone can rely on, rather than looking at the string of what the error is. Sometimes even that's really vague, right? So we wanted to have standardized usage of error codes. Currently, it's pretty much non-existent. For that, the proposal, is looking to reserve some error codes per category. We've split it into categories. We can add more category, we can remove it, modify it based on the feedback. But the goal is to reserve some error codes per category, and also predefine uh, the numbers to certain errors. For example, let's say nonce too low should always return say 001, something like that, which means any you can return any error string, but the error code will still be similar, just like in Web 2 world. People can reliably start using these error codes slowly, and will be a better cross-chain, cross-client experience for everyone. So that's the goal of the proposal, and really would appreciate if you can take a look at it, provide any sort of feedback.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense. So maybe feedback from my side as a person who, for example, sometimes fixed some things that we were doing different on Gaff. Um, that sometimes the hard thing is not maybe that there is an error code of certain value, but the problem is that when this error code should be used, and things like nonce to high or nonce to low is fairly maybe it's not even self-explanatory, right? And sometimes there is also like an order of validations, right? And this order of validations can also be different per client. Or so in similar
Right,
situations, you can get different error code.
right.
And sometimes even like mm, yeah, some things end up in the same bucket in one client, which you get the same error code, but different buckets in other clients when you can get different error codes, and those things are harder. Not just the existence of error codes, but where like exactly specified which error code should be returned where, or which error code maybe less important, but what order of the error codes should be validated, right? Things like that are also problematic between the clients sometimes.
No, very true, and great point too. Actually, last week when I was modifying few stuff, I also noticed that the nonce too low can be returned directly from mempool for certain clients. Certain clients do that at the consensus level, especially let's say some L2s. Few chains do that too. It's a great point, but with this provision, we can actually add nonce to low in both categories. Let's say you can add at mempool level. You can say 001 nonce to low is mempool level nonce too low, and we can also go and add it into consensus level, because we still have flexibility. We haven't used the entire ranges. If you want to go back and add it to the ranges, we can also extend the range. We can keep adding it, so now the users will actually know exactly where this nonce too low is happening, if it's happening at the consensus level or if it's happening at the mempool level. So even they can react to these different sort of hierarchy of validations on the client side. So we still have provisions for that, but we haven't defined these overlapping error codes yet in the example or the proposal we have raised right now, but we can definitely add it without causing any confusions. that's why we have grouping, error grouping. We have like mempool, we have execution errors, we have consensus errors, we have network errors. We can again also add more grouping or reduce grouping or split grouping based on how we want. But the overall general idea applies to pretty much every single client because they have a mempool, they have a consensus, they have a execution layer. So that's how we are basing these classifications on. So we can still add these overlapping errors into different categories, if that made sense.
Yeah, got it. Maybe it would benefit from more explicit spec when this should be thrown, right? So for example, what is nonce to low for transaction pool, right? Probably based on chain head, etc., right? If the, so for example, I would say like proper spec would be that the state that the nonce for the address of sender of the transaction, right? That is already in the state based on the current block, current fork choice updated head, right? Message from the fork choice update head. Nonce is smaller than, right? Smaller than provider, right? So a bit more verbose. What exactly does it mean? Okay, for nonce to low, it's pretty obvious, but there are especially in ETH call, let's say, scenarios, there can be really not custom, but really more complex scenarios where this verbosity would be nice to have.
Oh yeah, that's a really valid feedback. Would really also appreciate if you can point me to some. This is me coming from directly using, let's say, a client perspective rather than a protocol perspective. Working with multiple chains, so I went ahead and tested a lot of different chains, checking what is the value they return back to the client or the users in the JSON RPC. And that pretty much aligned with what the spec I have written right now. But definitely we can add any of these overlapping messages too. And more to say that we don't want to restrict users on returning any sort of string-based error messages. That is up to the user or clients to define whoever is going to adopt the spec. But we'll just hold the number. So we will know if we get anything between, let's say, 001 to 0010, it's going to be gas errors, which means we can sort of manipulate the gas and go. Yeah.
Especially on things like reverts, etc., users are relying on messages. Sometimes.
Right. Yeah, we have execution errors specifically defined class category, which means it is coming directly from execution clients, which is sort of telling the users, hey, this is coming from execution layer. You cannot have automated logic on top. Go and check the error messages and act manually. But if it's a gas-based error, which if I get, I'll by default, I can, try and bump the gas or try and bump the nonce, try and bump the gas limit to, make sure the transaction go through, which can be an automated process rather than it's a retriable logic rather than always failing logic. So that's how I'm trying to classify and also give more room for both clients and users to initially see how the specs spread out, rather than being too restrictive and too instructive to the clients. Hey, you have to use this sort of error message for this error code, and just follow the spec to the dot and T. So the goal right now is like, let's see if I do nonce error and if it's going to be 8001. If you want another nonce error in execution layer, if you still want to return it to the user directly without having a filter on top, you can add it to the execution layer and still return it. But you'll have for the users, they will start looking at the spec. They'll see, hey, okay, I see nonce too low error both in mempool as well as in execution. So I need to do validation for these two and react to these errors in a way that I want to. So it is also a little expandable in that sense.
Okay, I won't go into details, but I can point you to one of the PRs we recently
Cool.
did that can, for example, help you with understanding some of the problems we have with aligning to Gaff, right?
Awesome.
Because the problem for us is also like there was no spec, so Gaff is the spec. And in order to, and then someone complains, that's okay, they get different, for example, error messages. And the only way to do it is try to reverse engineer Gaff, right?
Yeah,
How the messages, and this is exactly a point when I think this kind of thing happened, and it actually wasn't a completely straightforward thing. It was also about reverse here, I think, a bit.
I see. No, this is very helpful. I'm gonna actually look into this and see if I can incorporate this into the
Because
example.
because we went from some two-state uh, two-state results that we're returning something deeply from EVM to three-state result, let's say. And depending on that, we had to adjust the error. But I think this is mostly for ETH get call, if I'm
Got it.
correct. There's also a issue for that. Yeah. So those are the most hard things to get aligned on because like yeah, sure, nonce to low, which is a static check that you do before even going to EVM is relatively easy to standardize.
No, yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, we can discuss this offline too. This is really helpful. I'll take a look at the PR and see if I can also use that in the or pre-reserve for your use case. But the main goal here is whatever error being returned to the users or DApps or client on a JSON RPC level
Mhm.
should be categorized and classified so people can start relying on error codes rather than messages, rejects, and stuff. But
Mhm.
yeah, definitely we'll take a look at this. Thank you so much.
Mhm. I think like this is somewhat already done in the clients. Like the easier errors are somewhat standardized. Again, probably the devil is in the details, and like if it's 80% standardized and 20% not, it's still problematic. Yeah, but that's my at least on Nevermind feeling that this is mostly, especially the simple errors, the static, let's say the static
Right,
errors,
right,
which
right, right,
are right there on the surface that you can validate and on the surface level without going deeper into the calls that you have propagated back from something somewhere deeper
right, right.
in the architecture. Those are relatively easy and mostly done, but again, I haven't looked into Ref or Aragon or Bezo that deeply, so maybe that's only. But I expect they have similar experience.
Do you have any thoughts on being able to like list out or investigate the dynamic calls that may throw back different errors? Yeah, what would be
That's a good
identifying?
question. Probably the best way would be to go through an implementation like Gaff and find all the errors there and create a test for each one, and then try those tests on different clients and see what happens. Right? And that would show you. And then don't already assume that maybe Gaff is super correct and others are not. If you have this discrepancy, try investigate a bit why this discrepancy, where does it come from, and which way you should standardize, right? Let's say that's how I
Sorry,
would approach it if I had to do
sorry.
it.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so I have something to say. Um, I don't think wouldn't it be better if we don't always rely on gets to validate? Can we do something about that? Because get can be right every time.
Yeah, so there are two things, right? We need to define the spec because it's not defined as a spec, right? So that should be the goal, in my opinion, to define the spec. And now Gaff is a good starting point because Gaff is the spec to some extent because there's no spec and Gaff was the main client for so long that it kind of became the spec. So that's why I say it's a very good starting point. But on the other hand, I'm not saying that you should blindly follow Gaff if you see that discrepancy between clients, but then we can investigate that scenario and figure out what the specs should be. But starting with Gaff, we need to start with somewhere, and so that's why I said that, I don't expect people to dive into multiple code bases. So diving into one code base and generating tests based on that one code base is a starting point.
Yeah, just a small point. I when I was writing the spec, I think like a year ago, that's exactly what I did. I attached a Excel sheet, but these are very basic tests that I did. I think I extended it at a later point, but I don't have the stored results for that. I was not able to find it, but this is basic ones I did really long back. But you can see it is testing Besu, Oregon, Get, Corley, even chains like ZK Sync and few other chains. Um, it's very inconsistent across. At least when I started, maybe there was some sort of standardization, but it's not written anywhere for rest of the clients or chains to follow unless you forget or like you work really closely with Get. The goal now is at least let's write it down so everyone has some place where they can look this up and follow it up rather than diving into one code base like you mentioned. Get.
Okay, that's a good data point, let's say, but how should I read it? Uh, is there a good way? Okay, but for example, just to looking, you were doing get balance with the latest parameter, right?
Right.
If those are in different points of time, you will get different responses, right? Because the balance of this address could change.
Right. So these are trying to simulate
Mm-hmm.
failure cases mostly, which
Mm-hmm.
means like if I'm getting an error, what is the error code? I'm focusing is
Okay.
on a error code.
Okay.
Like, yeah. But
Argument.
again, this is too old. I can try and redo this test
Mm-hmm.
with a more expansive use cases, but with the basic ones at least, like even the standard
Mm-hmm.
ones, we can actually see how different clients written completely different error messages or error code or reuse that error code that you can see -32602 for get balance, also for like get code, even for incorrect method name and stuff. So it is non-reliable, uh, even for get. We cannot
Okay.
say this one
Okay,
error
but
code means something.
this error code means invalid parameters or something. Let me double check what this is because don't know them by heart. So where do I have this? Okay. What's it set at null mind? Yeah, this is invalid params, right? So it's a very generic error code.
Right. Yeah.
So if the parameters are invalid, like you cannot deserialize them, right?
Right.
And for example, there might be different reasons, right? But you generally don't differentiate them. You cannot deserialize parameters. Yeah, your request is wrong, and maybe we can put in message what exactly is we have a problem with, and that's fine in my opinion to some extent. We not sure if there's point. Well, maybe there is a point of doing more detailed, but yeah, I'm looking at your sheet, jumping through Bezu, Erigon, Gaff, and they are more or less returning the same error code in those scenarios.
But even okay, So yeah, let's do this. I'll actually do a little more expansive test cases. I know this one I tried to more, try and simulate more on the basic error codes rather than diving deep into the execution logic. I wanted to initially check how the standardized error codes that JSON RPC currently uses is being used. Even with that, I can exactly point between which ones are colliding or overlapping. But I want to actually also use this as a feedback and do a bit more execution-based error codes and try and simulate, failure error cases.
Okay,
That might
but
be helpful for,
let me
yeah,
rephrase what I said. So looking at the sheet you provided,
yeah.
Bezu, Erigon, and Gaff, more or less, it's hard without a proper like diff on that. More or less, return the same error codes. I don't see anything obvious when they return different error codes.
True, but also the same error codes for different methods
Yeah,
is
yeah,
my
but
point.
but if an error code is invalid parameter, it's regardless of a method, right? If you cannot deserialize parameters for a method, that's a generic error code that can be used on from different methods.
True,
It's
true.
invalid parameters. And
Yeah,
this is the
there
most
was.
one that you have in
Yeah,
your.
that's the most one I'm actually
Mhm,
trying to look for because it's been long. I'm trying to remember which one. For example, if you take
mhm,
a ETH estimate gas
uh-huh,
on, let's say, Besu,
uh-huh.
and it's returning minus 32,000 saying execution reverted. It doesn't say why it was reverted. I actually don't know what was
Okay.
the simulation
Okay,
logic.
okay, and
Um,
what I was saying about the complex error codes,
right.
because this goes and spin ups the VM. VM does its thing, and then it reverts, right? In DVM, and there
Yeah, yeah,
might
yeah.
be multiple things why things is reverted. It might be a revert opcode directly from the contract, and this revert opcode might have some data attached or not. Or it might be out of Gaff, probably might result in the same thing, or it might be something else. So now it gets complex, and this is completely unspecified. Uh,
Right. Right. No, no, true. I agree. Yeah, that's why I want to do more execution-based tests. But if
mhm,
you look at the same error code in ZK EVM, you would see that for even wrong parameter, for example, if you take invalid block parameter format, line
uh-huh.
20,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
using the
here.
same error code for non-execution based.
Okay, got it. But that's the
Yeah,
KVM thing. Okay, you are going beyond Ethereum clients. Okay,
correct. Yes,
I don't have an idea about beyond Ethereum clients. So yeah,
correct.
that's where I agree with you. Sure.
Right. So this is going to this is sort of like a guide for everyone, any client, any
Mm-hmm.
chain, to be like, hey, we have a standard that exists. Please try and follow the standard. Even we
Mm-hmm.
are in a position where we can work with like really nascent chains,
Mm-hmm.
EVM chains, and say, hey, please follow the standard so all the DApps can, by default work with you without doing any modifications.
Got it.
That's
I do agree, especially if you like start adding like niche implementations, right? To the mix. This may make sense. What I was saying was more from perspective of established
right, right. No, definitely.
Ethereum
Clients.
clients,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
the big five, let's say.
Makes sense. Yeah. No, definitely, I agree. I'll also try and do more tests and see if I can find any inconsistencies between even the big five. But yeah, so the
You
point
might
was like,
find some, but I
yeah,
would say it's not as bad as you might think.
right,
Like,
right. No, I agree. But goal is for cross EVM chains, like EVM, all EVM chains or EVM clients should be standardized. How we expect the whole JSON method standardization, we're expecting the errors
sure.
as well.
But where those other EVM clients come from, most of them are forks of Gaff. They might be
Yeah.
they might be stale forks of Gaff, so they are not updated, right? And that might be one of the problems. Why, for example, maybe Gaff standardized something or fixed something and they don't have that fix or
Yeah.
standardization.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Not sure about ZK VMs. That's a good question, but ZK VMs now, most of them would also run a customly compiled EVM implementation that would also come from Big Five and maybe EVM1 or EtherRex, which is also
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
newer client, right? But
Right.
I think they mostly run compiled ref at the moment. I know because we are trying to compile Nevermind to this format. At the moment, we have a big initiative around that, and hopefully we'll also join soon. Gaff is also being compiled, I think, to 64-bit RISC-V. So those implementations that are running compiled, let's say Ethereum client code will inherit the Ethereum client properties in this regard. I think. I'm not sure if they will.
Yeah,
Okay,
that'll be great.
okay,
Yeah.
maybe they need a bit of additional code, additional instrumentation there.
Yeah.
So that
Sometimes I've noticed.
okay, that's a question mark then on my
Yeah.
side. But they could potentially inherit that to some
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah. No, sometimes I've noticed some of these chains, right, run just an RPC layer on top, just to do certain sequencer-based validations or add few more functionality. And they sort of return completely different error messages and codes just because they're running like a RPC wrap layer on top of any existing clients like Get or any other
Hmm.
fork. So the goal is for them to also say either use already standardized, follow the spec, because spec also follows the big five clients. That's why we are working with the Ethereum Foundation to make sure, this is set as a standard so everyone can follow and just you. It's
And what,
just
for example, if you have two problems like gas price too low and nonce too low?
mhm.
Do you want to define that in this scenario you have to return one over the other, or like a priority, like I said, the order of
No,
validations, or whatever you want at this moment?
that's up to the clients. At the end
Hmm.
of the day, whatever the clients, I mean, we're not trying to change the logic of validation,
Hmm.
just the value that they're returning. Just add
Okay.
proper number.
Uh,
Your existing
Then you
validation will
need
remain
to
the
be
same.
very precise in your tests. If you write test after that, if you provide, and in my opinion, with a spec, there should be a test set provided.
Right,
To when you're doing the test, that only this one thing has to be wrong in the request.
right. Yeah, yeah,
Because
that's
if there
the
will be
hard
more
part.
than one, because if
Yeah,
there will be more
definitely.
than one,
Yeah,
then you can get discrepancy between the results, and it
yeah,
will only spawn confusion, and people will just say that those tests are garbage because, for example, they returned the thing in Gaff order, and Nevermind has a bit different order, and now the test
right,
fail, right?
right.
And it will be just frustration.
No, completely agree because we've been talking about this a bit too because the test negative, especially the negative test case, is not going to be straightforward and it's going to cause a lot of confusion. So,
Depends which ones. The
right,
simple
depends
ones
which
are
ones.
not that bad. Get
Exactly.
a proper working case and just change one thing, right?
Right.
And you can get something relatively easily
Yeah.
targeted, right? Let's say.
Yeah.
The more complex one that involve execution, yeah, those are a lot harder to
Yeah.
craft.
Execution ones and consensus ones are really hard to achieve. Definitely. Yeah, we haven't gone to that stage yet, writing negative test cases. Hopefully, with the test I'm going to do across clients may come as a base for the future. But right now, goal is like non-restrictive spec documentation out there, so people start looking at it and start using it, and then we'll have the test to make sure that they slowly start being compliant to these specs. It's not a spec, like that's why we didn't write it as an EIP. It's more like suggestion and guide for now. We are not making it restrictive that you should return this code again, because it's almost impossible to make sure, like you said, the order of validation and making sure we cover all the use cases, all the scenarios of errors for any client. So for now, the goal is keep it simple. At least the major ones, the client, the DApps or wallets uses, and rely on those errors to do some reactive logic. We're just focusing on that at least for now. So at least that part will be seamless and making it easy, and then move on to complicate it slowly. That's why the spec is expandable for the future.
Okay.
But I'll work on the test. That's definitely a good feedback. Really appreciate that. It's also going to give me some points to modify the spec if you need to. But I'll work on the spec, the test.
Okay. Yeah, it looks so that looking at this current spec, it is okay, but it's very, very minimal at the moment.
Right. No, very true. Yeah, we're keeping it very minimal intentionally, like just the ones that is being used by the apps or clients. But yeah, we can discuss more. We can cover more tests or more error codes,
It might
resolve
be
more in
good
the future.
to, in the general one, just one thing, it might be good to expand a bit what is parse error, invalid request, invalid params. How do
Oh,
they
those are
differ?
standardized. So
Yeah,
those are
yeah.
standardized already
Yeah, I know, I know,
by
I know.
JSON RPC. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
can do that too,
Okay.
right? Yeah, I think
They
we
are
can do that.
standardized by okay, JSON RPC spec. Okay, got it.
Right. Yeah, we are not touching that range.
Okay, cool. Got it. And that's fine. I didn't even know that they are standardized there.
Yeah, they have like two implementation standard and just spec standard.
Okay, got it. Then that's fine. Yeah, but like I said, for Ethereum clients, this is not really that useful what you have there for the main ones, right? Because I think almost everything should be like that already.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
there might be an exception here or two, but you won't find it until you write the tests.
Right.
And run it on everything.
Right. So, I mean, I was initially thinking of changing the error codes to be in like an order within the range. For now, there is no particular range defining these categories, right? Like gas errors is not belonging to, let's say, 32,000 to 32,200.
But you want to
Goal is
change the existing error codes?
right. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, man. I think that's already, you know, like you would have to change both the Ethereum client and then all the users of those error codes.
Right. I mean, currently no one uses the error codes as far as I know, because it's not reliably
That's a very bold
defend.
statement.
I'm working. Just a bit of a context. I'm from Chainlink Labs. We work with so many EVM chains, right? And at least personally, I have worked with like 50, 60 EVM chains. And for 95% to 98% of the chains, we don't use error codes at all. We rely on string regex mapping internally to react to these errors, mainly because even the RPC clients, just like an RPC provider, have their own wrapper, return completely different error code for a different for any error
Interesting.
message. So we
Interesting.
don't use it. And as
So
far as I've
core
spoken,
devs did it.
yeah,
Core devs did it properly, and then RPC providers and users fucked it up.
right. Even for core devs, but there is no definition written down anywhere, right? No spec or document saying, hey, if this is the error
Yeah,
code, which
true.
means this is going to be the behavior. And that's what we want to achieve, at least like
Yeah, got
giving
it,
a
got it,
pointer. Yeah.
got it. So you say that if we remap the error codes, that's work would be mostly on us, on the core developers and potentially like RPC providers. But the
Right.
thing with remapping is that there will be a lot of inconsistencies, like in between flights, people running different versions, and that would cause even more chaos to some extent.
No, yeah, definitely agree. I'll also think about it how we can sort of make sure there's not break. Again, right? At least for initial couple of
You
versions,
know,
this is not
there are so
enforced
many
mandatory.
numbers. There are so many
Yeah,
numbers that you can say up to this point those are legacy error codes and they were defined before, and now we are defining new error codes in this
right,
range.
Yeah.
right.
Legacy.
Uh,
Legacy. Yeah,
So like, yeah, we could try and do it in a way that it's like, it just keeps it like the old values as exceptionals. And then,
yeah, that's what I meant, yeah, more or less.
yeah, yeah. And
yeah,
then
we can do
from
that.
there, we just say from this time forward on, we are no longer doing that. Yeah, that might actually be best because I'm thinking about like if a producer or consumer is aware of something happening, then there's always someone that's relying on it that like in a weird way that you would know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, can you have two error codes for the same code, one in legacy, one in node, but not really. That wouldn't work out well.
And initially, we're not going to force clients or anyone to, fail the validations of, let's say, high validations or RPC test gen. At least for a couple of versions, it'll be a guide saying, "Hey, we're not expecting this error code for this range, so try and change it." And then slowly start, at least for the basic ones, start moving to stricter implementations.
Like I said, implementing those basic error codes is very simple.
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes when those are those deeper that come from when you get to virtual machine execution, and then you need to
right,
map that to error code. That's where most of the problems come in. Similarly, and you do that in a lot of places because you do that in simple ETH get call or gas estimate, but you also do
right.
it in
Send
tracers,
transaction,
for example.
trace. Yeah, yeah,
Send transaction goes to transaction pool, so you don't execute it directly.
right,
Uh,
right.
but yeah, so there are different cases of that that might also differ. Now there's ETH simulate, which is a big piece of its own. Complicated. I think we did pretty well define error codes there for the ETH simulation part, but simulation also involves running virtual machine, and again, those error codes can bubble up from there in some regards. Maybe not. I don't remember. Or maybe they would be covered. Okay, I don't remember. Yes, there are so many details that it's hard to grasp everything. Mm, yeah, okay. That's my feedback, I think.
Oh, no, really appreciate. I have some stuff that I need to do on my end. But yeah, at least the goal is let's do basic, simpler codes, make everyone's life a little bit easier, and slowly move on to see how we can expand this. And that's intentionally left out the reserved range. We still have the ranges that you can use. People can still rely on them, but then slowly move towards using this as a base or a guide. And we all, of course, is gonna contribute and set the actual number or value. And we can actually keep adding it. Let's say Besu has a special use case and only Besu returns in the future. We can add it to the pre-reserved ranges. Of course, it's going to be a version bump. People can start relying on it. If not, send a completely new error message, but at least the ones that everyone is going to rely on across different clients is at least we need to standardize that because it's again like I mentioned, doing 60 plus EVM chains as an org, we've done more than 100 chains, but we haven't used this ever in any of the use cases or
Interesting.
scenarios.
That's not what I would expect, to be
So
honest.
yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to fix.
In my opinion, when people not using them is why they are not being respected. Because, like I said, and I disagree that people are not using them because we did have some tickets to align our error code with Gaff. So there are definitely some people using it. And I think that the biggest challenge for you would be getting on board RPC providers and making them compliant.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be a little
Because,
bit
like I said,
difficult. Yeah,
making client devs, at least like I said, Big Five, is trivial. We would love to have it. We would love to have tests so it will show us where we are not compliant. Uh, but RPC, if they have their own wrappers and the wrappers do whatever they want, then uh, yeah, that's on them, and they need to fix that by themselves.
yeah, no, definitely. This is a long goal. Like implementing a standard is never easy.
Mhm,
But at least we have good communication with most of these RPC party providers,
mhm.
and personal relationships with chains, where we can say, hey, now Ethereum Foundation has a standard, and we work based on this standard. So we sort of come in like a middleman and
But
saying, please work with the standard so it's easy for everyone.
again, I think you need those test suits because
Oh
if you
yeah, yeah,
just say them, "Oh, this is the spec, please comply," and they would say, "Yeah, whatever," and if you say, "Oh, this is the test suit that every client, if you run them locally, every major client complies with, and you just don't, and we can run it on your endpoint and see you don't,"
yeah.
then that may, budge them a bit. And for the
Oh yeah,
simpler
completely
error
agree.
code, error code, I think it's not that much of work on their side to be
Right,
compliant.
right. Yeah, the end
The
goal
base.
is implementing this in a Hive test and incorporating this in the Fortnite test that runs, I think. I'm not fully sure, but yeah, the end goal is
Yeah,
get this
but
included in
what
the
I also mean,
test.
you need to, like, we have a page for Hive test. You need to target the alchemy, infura, etc., and as the test there to some extent. Okay, it might be hard because some of those will be state based, but some are not. So at least with that, with the stateless test,
Hmm.
that's like you send a transaction with invalid nonce. That's a stateless test, right?
Right.
If you have small amount of gas on you have a private key, right? Whatever, you can probably
Hmm.
do that, right? So you can send a valid signed transaction, and this is like doesn't cost much. Uh, yeah, so for the basic things, you should also like put them on the pedestal. Yeah, you're every you're the problem here, right? And fix it. That's
Right,
what I mean.
right.
Like, you need a bit of a stick to probably get
No,
them.
agreed. Yeah, definitely. We'll start working on the test. I was just trying to gather more feedback on the proposal, so I don't have to rewrite the test, but test is definitely the next step to this.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
fine with the proposal. I find it basic. Like from my perspective, never mind that I expect it's mostly compliant with it already.
cool,
It
awesome.
would be good to have a test case when if we're not compliant in like three or four of those, we would probably change immediately.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's definitely coming. Thank you. Yeah, I do want to give back some time if anyone else has any other opinions or some other topics we want to discuss, Mercy. I really appreciate the feedback. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I don't have any other thing to discuss. Just I need to Kerry, I don't know, there was a chat on Discord about the RPC test suite. So Sina did ask for regular updates so that they can track the process in resolving the issue, and then if you can like summarize the differences that needs to be addressed. So I don't know if you can like work this out behind the scenes, and then we'll get back to Sina on this. I don't know if you saw the chat.
I didn't, but I have a spreadsheet going, so I can.
Okay, okay.
Was
That would
that
be
this
really
week or last week?
Can you just send me a DM, or can I
Oh,
send you a
gotcha.
DM?
Gotcha. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, that's all from my end. I don't know if someone else has something to say. The floor is open before we wrap up. All right. I guess that's all for today. Thank you all for joining, and it was really nice getting all this feedback. Thank you, Luca.
Yeah, sure, no problem.